For those of you who don't already live on the internet, this Friday is the day that we, the internet, get off of our potato asses, put down our video game controllers, set aside our Twitter feuds, and band together in meat space to storm Area 51 and see them aliens. Initially started as a joke, the Storm Area 51 Facebook event has garnered 3.6 million RSVPs with over 2 million people marked as going, because they can't stop all of us. Actually, yes. Yes, they can. And it would look something like this.
Show us the aliens!
Let's clap some alien cheeks!
The US government houses some of its most valuable military secrets at Area 51 and has built the top secret military facility to withstand a full-on military assault. So they're not just gonna let Karen saunter in because she wants to speak to a manager, as was made abundantly clear in January of this year when a man attempting to rush his way inside the military base was shot and killed on sight. Although, rumor has it he wasn't Naruto running. Given the base's top secret nature and the aircraft-related research going on there, Area 51 has become the focal point of a host of UFO conspiracy theories. So I've teamed up with Stephen Woodford from the channel Rationality Rules to help uncover exactly what is at Area 51, as far as we know, and just how likely it is that the base is actually hiding extraterrestrial flying saucers and little green men. First off, what do we know about the base? Well, thanks to now declassified documents released as a result of the Freedom of Information Act, as well as from leaked documents, satellite imagery, and eyewitness accounts, we know quite a bit. For starters, in the 1950s, as a result of the Cold War, the CIA was looking for a remote facility to develop top secret spy planes. In 1955, they established a base at Groom Lake in the southern Nevada desert and called it Homey Airport, and it would later be known as Area 51. Here, they developed new military technology, including anti-radar equipment, and they tested the U-2 spy plane, training pilots to fly at an amazing 70,000 feet. When the U-2 was shot down over the Soviet Union, the US developed its successor, and it too was tested at Area 51, the legendary SR-71 Blackbird, which can fly over 3 times faster than the speed of sound, and for a while was virtually impossible to shoot down. It was flown over Korea and Vietnam, where over 800 surface-to-air missiles were fired at the plane unsuccessfully. But reports indicate that while it was flown along the Soviet border, it never actually flew over the Soviet Union because the US didn't want to risk it falling into the hands of the Russians and also wanted to avoid another potentially diplomatic disaster. Furthermore, the rise of satellite imagery slowly made these kinds of spy planes less relevant for the purpose of military intelligence gathering. Some of the other planes tested at Groom Lake included the A-12, the Have Blue, the F-117A Nighthawk, the Tacit Blue, the ultra-thin UFO-looking Lockheed P-175 Polecat, unmanned spy planes like the D-21, and potentially the mythical Aurora spy plane, although no conclusive evidence of the Aurora currently exists. There are rumors online that the US has a super high-tech nuclear-powered plane with a magnetic field disruptor engine called the TR-3B, and I desperately want to believe that this is true because it sounds so cool. However, most of these rumors originate from the testimony of Edgar Rothschild Fouche, who, despite multiple inconsistencies with his testimony, elementary level scientific inaccuracies in his description of known technologies, and his abysmal use of inaccurate terminology, bases his credibility on the word of his psychic, who told him that he has an honest aura. To which Fouche replied, "Being an affectionate, high-strung, left-handed liberal Pisces, I agreed." So what about actual evidence? Well, the only decent footage of the TR-3B we have are shots like this one, which are conclusive proof to UFO truthers, but in reality can be traced back to the VFX demo reel of a guy named Splatflies on Dailymotion, along with other CGI UFO videos he's made. In 1989, a man named Bob Lazar claimed to have worked at Area 51 on reverse engineering flying saucers. I could dedicate an entire episode to debunking Bob Lazar, but I don't really have to, because here's a physicist named Stanton Friedman, the father of ufology, and a firm believer in extraterrestrial visitation. He, of all people, would be the most likely to want to accept Bob Lazar's testimony, but after spending time with him and investigating Lazar's claims, Friedman concluded that it's all bunk. Lazar claimed to have attended 4 different universities, including MIT and Caltech, but according to Friedman, not one shred of evidence has been put forth to support this story. No diplomas, no resumes, no transcripts, no memberships in professional organizations, no papers, no pages from MIT or Caltech yearbooks. I checked all 4 schools. Pierce Junior College said he had taken electronics courses in the late 1970s. The other three schools had never heard of him. Lazar claims that this is because the government is trying to wipe his civilian record, which makes very little sense. If he's that big of a threat to national security, why don't they just arrest or kill him? But Friedman continues. He was publicly asked when he got his MS from MIT. He said, "Let me see, I think it was probably 1982. Nobody getting an MS from MIT would not know the year immediately. He was asked to name some of his profs. He said, "Let's see now, Bill Duxler will remember me from the physics department at Caltech. I located Dr. Duxler. He's a Pierce Junior College physics professor and never taught at Caltech." Lazar was registered in one of his courses at the same time Lazar was supposedly at MIT. Nobody who can go to MIT goes to Pierce Junior College. Not to mention the rather long commute between LA and Cambridge, Massachusetts. This goes on, and I will link to the full article in the description below, but it doesn't look good for Lazar. There have been many alleged UFO sightings near US Air Force bases, often described as high-tech, fast-moving triangular aircraft, which is unsurprising given just how common that shape is for US jets, and just how fast some of them can move. The X-15, for example, was so fast, traveling 7 times the speed of sound, that it was able to leave our atmosphere and fly through outer space, making it technically a spacecraft, and its pilots got their astronaut wings. Another plane, the B-2, looks remarkably like a flying saucer at the right angles, considering each one of these planes costs an astonishing $2 billion. It's no surprise that they're extremely high tech and almost undetectable by even top-notch foreign military radar systems. If all the US was testing at Area 51 was our own airplanes, that in itself would be enough to warrant them placing the base in a remote desert and guarding it with lethal force. But that's not all we know about the base. We also know that Area 51 has repeatedly been used to test captured enemy aircraft. For example, in 1966, an Iraqi fighter pilot ordered to drop napalm on the Kurds defected to Israel. His Russian jet, a MiG-21, was confiscated by Israel and secretly lent to the US for the American Air Force to study. The US possession of the MiG-21 was top secret, and it was tested and evaluated at Groom Lake. A similar incident occurred 4 years later when 2 Syrian pilots flying Russian MiG-17Fs got lost and landed in Israel. Their planes were also secretly sent to Area 51 for testing. It has since been revealed that the US captured quite a few foreign planes and tested them at Groom Lake, including the MiG-23BN, MiG-29s, and the Su-27S, just to name a few. Foreign governments don't usually look too kindly on other countries capturing and reverse engineering their classified military technology, so being in possession of said tech is something to keep secret, and it makes perfect sense. Plus, in order to obtain and hold a military edge, the US government has every reason to keep our technological breakthroughs a secret. That's why most of the planes I listed, which we know that the US tested at Area 51, are old news. Most of them were retired during the turn of the century. The SR-71, for example, first flew in 1964 and was retired in 1998. Over 2 decades ago. There's no knowing just how far the technology of the CIA and US Air Force has come since then. But if it looks anything like the B-2 or the Bird of Prey, I wouldn't blame you for mistaking their aircraft for a UFO. That said, I'm not saying that you should trust everything that the government says or that the US government isn't hiding anything. They definitely are. Area 51 is a top secret military base, and no one but those working there know exactly what it holds. With billions of galaxies out there containing billions of stars, each potentially possessing its own solar system, it's not unlikely that intelligent life exists elsewhere in the universe. But just how likely is it that we've been visited by humanoid-like little greenish gray men in flying saucers, which the US government is hiding in Nevada? Well, for that, I'll turn you over to Steve.
Salutations, primates. Let's drink some Kool-Aid. In a 1966 CBS documentary titled UFO, Friend, Foe, or Fantasy, the legendary astrophysicist Carl Sagan listed some peculiar regularities between belief in God and belief in flying saucers.
The inhabitants of saucers are benevolent. I mean, they're really concerned for our well-being. They're omnipotent, extremely powerful, omniscient, extremely knowledgeable. Now, this combination is something I've heard in another context. This isn't science, this is religion.
Sagan reasoned that due to discoveries such as other solar systems, other galaxies, and natural selection, people have lost their faith in theology and are now filling that gap, those needs, with alternative myths that are more resistant to, or completely impervious of, science.
The flying saucer myths are a really clever compromise. It's a way of having beings that come from the sky, that are worried about us, that are powerful, that are going to step in and prevent us from destroying ourselves, as we very well might, and yet have it in the cloak of science. so that no one can say nonsense that doesn't match science. It's all very pseudo-scientific.
This, of course, doesn't address the question of visitation, but it does establish something important. Most people interested in alien conspiracies deeply want them to be true, and this very much clouds their judgment. For example, and as you already likely know, a UFO is literally an unidentified flying object, and yet when conspiracy theorists see a UFO, they very quickly jump from "we don't know" to "therefore aliens," which has, one might say,
Peculiar regularities.
with theists going from "we don't know" to "therefore God." Both are arguments from ignorance.
But what's driving that thing if not a space alien?
It's unidentified. Just because you don't know what it is you're looking at doesn't mean it's intelligent aliens visiting from another planet.
But what of the actual science, I hear you saying? Are there any signs that we've been visited? Is there any evidence whatsoever? The answer is, of course, yes, plenty. In a strict sense, if one sees a UFO blink past them, as in a flying object that one can't identify, that is evidence for aliens, but it's also evidence for countless other phenomena that don't violate everything we know. It could have been a moth, for example, or a fly, a bird, a frisbee, an eye floater, or even a troll down the road with a drone. And if one happens to reside anywhere near an Air Force facility that is on record for housing and testing insanely fast, oddly shaped aircraft, then that's probably what it is. But strictly speaking, yes, we do have evidence of intelligent aliens, just as we technically have evidence for Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, and insert pretty much any nonsense here. But to quote Sagan, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and without such extraordinary evidence, Occam's razor dictates that we put our tinfoil hats aside. Now, don't get me wrong, since single-celled organisms emerged on Earth within just a few million years of its existence, the cosmos is almost certainly teeming with life. The chances that we are alone is just about zero. But considering such facts as 1, it took 2 billion years for multicellular life to evolve, which, to put that into perspective, is longer than the total lifespan of many solar systems. 2, the distance between solar systems is thousands if not millions of light years. And 3, there is no objective, verifiable evidence of visitation. It's therefore extremely unlikely that we've been visited. What's more, consider the fact that we are just a tiny fraction smarter than our fellow mammals, and yet we still haven't had a single meaningful communication with any of them. And we're not interested. And so why would a super intelligent alien species give any more of a damn about us? If they do exist, can travel faster than the speed of light, and do want to come here, I would wager that it would not end in our favour. Just as we exploit without mercy our own kin, I think it's very likely that they would do the same to us. Alrighty, cheers for having me, people. I'll send you back to Thomas. My gosh, government doesn't want me speaking about anything.
Thanks, Steve. Fantastic as usual, but that's not all that Steve and I have in store for you. While we were covering Area 51, we wanted to dive deeper into the world of conspiracy theories, because we're all susceptible to falling for crazy ideas. So we each chose the most ridiculous conspiracy theory we could find that people actually believe and tasked the other person with debunking it. It's freaking insane. And you can watch that over on Steve's channel. While you're over there, make sure that you check out his other content, hit that subscribe button, and let him know that I sent you. And I will see you over there. If you like this video and you want to help my channel grow, you can support my work with a one-time donation on PayPal or a recurring pledge on patreon.com/holykoolaid. Links to everything are in the description below. And to all my current patrons, thank you. You freaking rock. And as always, dare to be curious, but don't drink the Kool-Aid.